everyone. This is ring announcer Thomas Triber. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the time has arrived for Inside Boxing Weekly. So here are your hosts, Mike Goodpaster, John Einreinhofer, and Jeremiah Preisser on the Grueling Truth Sports Network.
Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Weekly is brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation. You can find out about them on Facebook. Just look up Alex Ramos, Jackie Richardson, I think. They run it. They do a great job there, so make sure you go to Facebook and check them out. I'm your host for Inside Boxing Weekly, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I want to welcome in my co-host. Let's see if I can remember their names since it's been a long time since we've done this show. First up, we've got Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm doing very, very good. It's good to be back, guys. Let's talk some boxing.
All right, and of course, our other co-host is a man who spends a lot of time at West Virginia games, and it let him down last week. John Einreinhofer. How you doing, John?
Mike, good to be here. I'm barely recovered from last week, but I think I'm just about there.
All right, and we have a special guest tonight. And if you've got a fan that loves boxing and you're looking for a stocking stuffer, Intimate Warfare by John Raspanti, Dennis Taylor, pictures by Ed Mulholland. I highly recommend it. I know Jeremiah highly recommends it. He read the book also. Help me welcome to the show, John Raspanti. How you doing, John?
Doing great, Mike. Always a pleasure to be on, talking some boxing with you guys. Really looking forward to this.
All right, so let's start off here. In the last 6 weeks, it's been 6 weeks since we've done the show, we've got to see DAZN, the ESPN Plus app. So I'm just going to go around and ask you guys what you think about it, and I'm going to start off with Jeremiah Preisser. Jeremiah, what's your take on it?
Well, I think the bang for the buck. I mean, there's a lot of press being given to HBO on their way out. It was $15 just for that itself. When you combine ESPN and DAZN, I mean, it's a much better value than either one of those. I mean, especially at DAZN. I mean, when you combine the two, you've got fights every weekend. There's a lot of mismatches, unfortunately, because a lot of promoters are, they're going to play ball. They're going to take their ball and play on their side of the court. But with DAZN, I've been particularly impressed because the cards have actually been pretty good from top to bottom. I mean, even when you go down to the bottom of the barrel stuff, like when they had the Pro Gray Flanagan fight, that card, they had some nice local guys all the way on the bottom, and it was pretty evenly matched. So, right, I don't have much to complain about in terms of DAZN yet. Again, I do think eventually if these guys don't start reaching across aisles and shaking hands, it's going to be a bigger problem. But so far, so good. ESPN, I think they've gotten a little lucky, with some of the fights that have turned out a little bit better than they expected. The undercards aren't as strong as DAZN. But again, for the price tag, you get access to the old library and whatnot. I think they're pretty solid. I particularly like DAZN's setup and how easy it is to access and navigate, and the black and white color scheme I think is rock solid. They seem like they have too many people working there. There's just a little bit too much of the, passing the potato off from one person to the next person. That's a bit odd. The Sugar Ray Leonard edition, I've already made that clear that I can't stand the guy as a commentator. He's just too reserved. He doesn't make things interesting at all.
In the 80s too, so it hasn't gotten any better.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to answer questions, and it really turned me off when they asked him about Golovkin's future, and he was like, oh well, sometimes in close fights you get controversial scores, and I'm like, is that what you've got to add to the argument? All right, man. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. I think DAZN, and I think they're both solid for the price tag that you're getting, especially compared to the old price tag of Showtime and HBO. But there's a lot of room for improvement. Again, they got to reach across aisles and they got to get the fights done. Yeah.
Jeremiah or John, not Raspanti, John Einreinhofer. What's your take on it? Because I know you weren't a big fan when it was first announced, but have you changed your mind at all?
No, actually, I'm going to tie it all in together with what I'm seeing with PBC and the Showtime pay-per-view and ESPN Plus. I don't like the way the whole thing's going. I think that the DAZN is just basically become where HBO left off on an app. Yeah, sure, there's a few more fights, but you don't have other programming like you had on HBO. Price is similar. Canelo Fielding's a garbage fight, let's face it. I mean, Canelo's coming back quick, so you can sort of give him a bit of a pass on that personally as a fighter, but, fans being asked to pay for that kind of stuff. A lot of the fights on there are just plain old bad mismatches. PBC, I had hoped that when they got this second go-round with Fox for free, that they would take advantage of it with better match-offs right off the bat. Instead, they're going to go with mismatches, and they've got 3 Showtime pay-per-view fights coming up, which basically should be Showtime fights at the most. ESPN, as Jeremiah alluded to, come up with a couple of good fights that they probably weren't expecting, but midnight start times in the East Coast, ratings not bad. Again, you give a fan a decent fight on basic cable, and they're going to tune in. There's some potential there, just the same as if PBC and their Fox deal would put some of their good stuff on with Fox. But you've got quotes from some Steven Espinosa recently, which he might be at least somewhat telling the truth, that they just don't feel that they can pay these guys the money they want and not go pay-per-view. And you saw HBO doing that at the end, which basically killed them as much as anything. Fights that should have been regular HBO fights became pay-per-view. But I don't see the zone helping the problem, because they've just got a lot of the type of fights that HBO was showing at the end. Not even really that good. I don't think they'll be able to hold their $9.99 subscription price. That's going to go up, or they're going to start pay-per-views. If you do the math, just to pay Canelo alone, they'd have to take their $9.99 subscription fee, get 1 million subscribers for 3 years, and pay it all to Canelo with the money that the figures they put out there. So that's not going to work that's without even paying opponents. So
yeah,
I think
my thing,
basically, I just want to finish one thing, Mike. I'm sorry, but one phrase to wrap the whole thing up, because I think this is where DAZN, even PBC now with Fox, the ESPN Plus, boxing. They've decided that they're going to leave boxing as a niche sport where the hardcore fans and followers are going to be asked to pay and keep paying until the base shrivels and you're going to be asked to pay more and more. I don't really see a serious effort to grow the fan base of the sport at all. It won't be what it was, but at least grow it at all. I don't see that. So that's where I'm disappointed with all the models that I see out there.
But the one thing is this: before I was paying $15 for HBO, $10 or $15 for Showtime. That's $20 or $30. Now I'm paying $15, and I may get the Fielding Canelo, which sucks, but I also get a Kell Brook card with Josh Kelly fighting David Evanishin. We go down here, and you're getting Gilberto Ramirez versus Jesse Hart in a rematch. You're getting Daniel Dubois versus Kojuni, whatever the hell his name is. Plus, you get the Fielding Canelo, which has also got David Lemieux fighting somebody I've never heard of. But my take on this is this: as long as it's $10, I'm fine with it. We also get ESPN Plus, Josh Warrington versus Carl Frampton. You get Dillian White, Derek Chisora on DAZN later in the month. So right there, that's 6 cards. I'm paying $15, and I think it's going to go up too. But as of right now, I would rather pay the $15 for DAZN and for ESPN Plus as opposed to what I was getting from HBO and Showtime.
Well, if you go back a little farther, though, Mike, you were getting better stuff before HBO started running all the pay-per-views. Let's go back to that time frame. Let's say we go back maybe a little bit more than 10 years ago. You were getting a lot better value then with the quality of fights you were getting compared to DAZN now. Now, I think, you can make an argument as a hardcore fight fan that you're saying, like, well, I'm just getting more fights as a big fight fan. But, the sport, the fan base is not growing with Dylan White and Derek Chisora, in the U.S. at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. Not that
but I don't think this fan base really grows from any fights you put up now. The fan base obviously isn't from Fury Wilder, which we're going to talk about later, because they can't even sell. They're like 10 or 11,000 tickets sold right now. So no matter what you do here, it's all going to come down to what Jeremiah said, is these guys are going to cross over, and DAZN fighters are going to have to fight PBC fighters. It's going to have to happen, or this is going to die a slow death.
Well, I think that's part of it, but that's not all of it, because even if you do that, that's still not growing your fan base. I mean, in other words, if you make better fights crossing the aisle, but they're still all pay-per-view and they're going to cost a lot of money, that's not going to get high enough exposure to any new fans or more casual fans. You would have had to have something like PBC was doing, like they threw out there with, Thurman and Garcia, Thurman Porter on CBS. But you'd have to do more of that. You'd have to make more of the investment and do more over time. Then maybe you have some pay-per-views for some of the biggest fights in PBC or crossing the aisle, where people know the fighters and they've seen them in good fights that they want to watch. But
yeah, but don't you think the problem is the lack of amateur boxing? I mean, because when you look at it, in the 80s, there was all kind of transcendent figures. There are none right now. Vasil Lomachenko, yeah, he's really good, but is a 130, 135-pounder from another country going to be able to blow things up the way that Sugar Ray Leonard did? I think the answer to that's obvious. He can't. And you got guys like Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, who, no matter how good they are, do not have the personality of Sugar Ray Leonard.
Well, I think if you saw, I mean, those are guys that if they were on regularly being seen, regularly on free TV or even ESPN, they'd have a chance to in good fights. Now that's the key, not in mismatches, in good fights.
Yeah, but they're not going to be in good fights because that's one of the problems.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
So, real quick, John Raspanti, what's your take on the ESPN Plus and DAZN?
Everybody's making great points. For a boxing junkie, it's a great thing, and I understand what John is saying about growth and all that, and that's true. But for somebody who has to write about sport like us and who loves it like us, I mean, I love the fact that you get the entire card.
Yeah.
And you get to see young fighters and all that. And then if you go on ESPN Plus, you've got that great library if you want to watch stuff. So I think that's all very good. And I agree that they have to meet in the middle somewhere. And over the entire history of boxing, there have been periods where there just aren't always good fights, and there's not going to be. I mean, we complain about that a lot because we want the best to fight the best.
Yeah, John,
PBC,
you're old enough to remember
yes.
this, but the 1960s, I think, is really comparable to this era.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And PBC, they love to have mismatches. Maybe that's the wrong word, love. They make mismatches a lot. I don't know why. And then they have a really good fight. Thurman and Porter, Thurman and Garcia. Al Heyman, it's almost like he's milking things. He thinks that by showing one of his fighters knocking a guy out in a round or two, that's very impressive. Okay, he knocked him out, but it's a mismatch. So I like it. I like the money aspect of it, too. I think the production values are good. I don't particularly like the announcers very much. I end up turning the volume down. Just the English announcers, to me, yak way too much during the fights. There's sometimes you just want to say, shut the F up, okay. But that's just me. But as I agree, though, that it isn't exactly building the sport to where we want it to be, but I don't think it's ever going to be like that anyway until, like Mike said, somebody comes along who's bigger than life. If it ever happens again, Sugar Ray Leonard or Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, somebody that people really cheer for, grabs the imagination of. But right now we have this, and I agree. I'll take this over HBO and Showtime. HBO was dying a slow death the last year anyway, because I like it that it's on earlier in the day for me. So for me, mostly it's all good.
All right. So let's go ahead and start talking about the fights this week. We've got the big card with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, but also on Saturday night, if you don't want to pay out the ass for a fight, we've got Alexander Gvozdyk, who will challenge Adonis Stevenson. And I know John Einreinhofer, you think this is the end of the road for Stevenson, correct?
Yeah, I think that Gvozdyk is going to handle Stevenson easily. I think he'll stop him probably, maybe around the 6th round or so. and I'm not. It's not being down on Stevenson as a fighter. I mean, his left hand was for real. He's had a good career, despite the criticisms of and rightfully so, of his weak, lineal defense opposition in recent years, up until Badu Jack, who I thought Badu Jack's overvalued by a lot of people. That's why the fact that Stevenson had a draw with him doesn't particularly impress me. It just shows me that he's about, not that it was a bad performance by him, but he's at the end of the road. I think the tank's about empty. And conversely, I think that Gvozdyk is a very good fighter. He's got amateur pedigree, 2012 Olympic bronze medalist. This comes from the Ukrainian system where they've produced a lot of top fighters. He's 6'3". He's got power and he can box. I think he just had a problem of occasionally fighting down to his competition. But, when he's fought even Muhammadi, who used to be a contender, he stopped him in the first round. Yuneski Gonzalez is very tough. He looked spectacular in stopping him early. He took out Chilemba. Other people haven't been able to take out Chilemba. So I think when he needs to raise his game, he can raise it. Maybe he goes a little extra cautious in the first few rounds just because of the Stevenson's power in the past. But even though power is the last thing to go, power goes eventually too. And I think for Stevenson, that at 41, that's probably going to be even sapping out of him. And then, Gvozdyk's added Atlas. I think, sometimes the influence of the trainer can be a little bit overrated, and it's the first time they're working together. But I think since he had a couple of performances that weren't up to his abilities, maybe Atlas lights a fire under him as well. I don't think it'll be the difference in the fight. I think Gvozdyk would beat Stevenson anyway, but I think that probably helps him even a little bit. Atlas has had some good words yesterday about what he's seen about Gvozdyk in training, and Atlas isn't a guy that'll always just say that. So I think that's going to come together pretty well, and I think this should be a good coming out party for Gvozdyk. The odds are close to even money. Surprises me a little bit, but I always take what the odds makers have to say seriously. But on this one, I'm gonna go out and say that I think that Gvozdyk is going to make a statement here and get Stevenson out of there.
All right, John Raspanti, do you agree?
I'm leaning towards that. Yeah, I think I do agree. I think it's about time that Stevenson loses. He's 41 years old, obviously. He didn't fight like a 41-year-old, to be honest. But, he's still got that power. So Gvozdyk's chin is definitely going to be tested here. I haven't seen him fight very much, only a little bit, but he's been very impressive. His win over Gonzalez last year was pretty dang impressive, and ABF light heavyweight title, if I remember correctly. And he's been a little spotty in some of his after that, but Teddy will have him ready to go, and it just seems that he's got to be careful early to me because Stevenson's got a lot of power, as I just said, and if he the first 5 or 6 rounds will probably be pretty close, and Stevenson was lucky to get a draw with Badu Jack or not, but or maybe Jack was unlucky, but it just seems like in the realm of boxing that there's always somebody who's going to knock you off, and when you're 41 years old, it's always sooner than later. So, yeah, I agree with John. I think Stevenson's going to get beat this weekend.
Yeah, I hope he gets beat this weekend. My only worry is I don't think Gvozdyk has fought great competition, and his last fight against Amar, I think it was in March, he didn't look great. I didn't think in that fight. But I lean towards him also. It wouldn't surprise me if Stevenson catches him, takes him out, just because – I haven't seen enough of Gvozdyk to buy it, but just the fact that Stevenson's 41 and Gvozdyk has looked good against guys like Gonzalez would have me favor him a little bit. Jeremiah?
Right.
Yeah, Raspanti talked about Badu Jack. I'm sure he watched the Dimitri Bivol fight, and he was like, God, I can't wait to fight Bivol and give him a draw too. That's just but that's just Badu Jack's. That's his MO. But no, I mean, I'm pretty much on board with all of you guys. I mean, the thing about Stevenson is that, when he fought Badu Jack, to me, Badu Jack is a bit more predictable. He comes forward. He just, whereas Gvozdyk has good footwork. He implements feints better. His hands, I think, are quicker. He's sharper with his combinations. I think John Einreinhofer made this point in that, Gvozdyk will fight to the level of his opposition. You look at against Tommy Karpency, one of those off and on performances that has been alluded to, where he was actually dropped in that fight. The fight you referenced, Mike, and he didn't look so hot, but yeah, against Gonzalez and against the best competition, the Chilemba fight. I mean, I actually think that win looks pretty significant right now, because not only did Kovalev score a dull decision over him, Bivol did as well. So, whereas Gvozdyk went out there and was taking no names that night. So I do think that, Stevenson has the pop. Gvozdyk did show that he can be dropped and can be hurt. But again, I think this, just like you guys, I think this is Gvozdyk's time. And I'm really looking forward to the Lineal Championship passing hands. I think Gvozdyk would be a worthy title holder, and I'd look forward to his defenses, and it just feels like we kind of need the crown to be passed anyways. We're ushering in a new era anyways. Guys like Peter Biev, Bivol, Gvozdyk, those are all the new faces that we need. There needs some life needs to be injected into it, and I will say also that not only do I think Gvozdyk would be a good lineal champ, but in regards to Teddy Atlas being the trainer, he mentioned this on the interview that he did with Joe Rogan, was that he actually sat down with Gvozdyk before he accepted to train him and said that he was a good dude most of all. And so, that's sort of the one thing that endears, to fans as well. And I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder card is coming up Saturday night from the Staples Center in Los Angeles. And we start off with a fight. I was really excited about this fight, John Raspanti, because Joe Joyce was fighting Tom Hanks, and then I noticed it was Joe Hanks. Do you think Joe would have a better chance than Tom in this fight?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's another showcase fight for Dubois, your favorite fighter, Mike. He should score a quick knockout. At least that's what they want.
No, I like Daniel Dubois, but okay.
Yeah,
I'm not as
right.
impressed by Joyce. Come on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. I'm getting old. Joyce wasn't very impressive at all when I saw him on a fight. I thought he was okay, but I wasn't very impressed by Dubois in his last fight either. So there you go. But Joyce looks very overrated to me at this point. He should win, obviously, by a knockout. But I just when he fights somebody who can fight him back a little bit, I think he's going to get beat. I think he's overrated. I think it's inevitable. They're trying to rush him quickly because I get the feeling they know that. Not obviously in this fight, fighting Tom Hanks here, but.
It's Joe Hanks.
I know. I had to throw that in one more time. It's too funny of a line.
It just gets me excited when I think he's going to fight Tom Hanks.
But, it should be an easy fight for him. And then you just wait till 2019 when he fights somebody, like I said, who can fight him back. Then we'll find out. But I haven't been very impressed by the guy at all, obviously.
All right. When you look at him, Jeremiah, Joe Hanks did fight Andy Ruiz, but Andy Ruiz bounced him off the canvas like a yo-yo and knocked him out in the fourth round. He fought a majority draw or a majority decision loss to Derek Rossi. I think this is a cupcake for Joe Joyce. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, like Raspanti said, more to the point, I think, is that they're going to position Joyce into easy fights so long as he can get to near the top, and then they'll probably throw him in against Anthony Joshua in a big what'll be a big domestic showdown, and watch him get bounced off the canvas like a yo-yo. I mean, I'm not particularly fond of what I've seen so far either. I think he's slow as molasses. I actually think they probably could have put him against Chris Arreola, who's I think still on that undercard too. And I think Joyce would have probably beaten him as well. I just think Arreola's long past his best. But there's no real threat here. Joyce is going to be maneuvered until he gets a big British fight.
All right, John Raspanti, you agree? Or John Einreinhofer? We got too many Johns. Go ahead.
Well, I actually think that Joyce to me has actually looked pretty good, but he's 33 years old. He started started his amateur career very late. I agree with Jeremiah. He's not real quick, but he's a big guy that's kind of heavy-handed, and he's kind of a force in there. I mean, he kind of interests me. I think at the very least, he's a guy that's going to provide some entertainment value before he's done. But this is a complete mismatch. To me, this is where PBC is missing an opportunity. You know, I would have liked to see Wilder and Fury not be on pay-per-view, but if you're going to put it on, take a shot and reach for the stars and put it on pay-per-view and charge $75. I mean, you know, you could have had Joe Joyce and you know, Luis Ortiz. I mean, they're both on the card. I mean, you know, and there was rumors that they were going to do that fight, and then they back off of it.
Yeah, but then that eliminates, you know, Wilder's next fight, a rematch with Ortiz, and Joshua's fight a year from now against Joyce.
Well, you know, I don't think Eddie Hearn's going to be doing business with PBC guys and having Joyce as an opponent anyway. The way this stuff's been going, and Hearn's got his little agenda over in the UK for Joshua. So, you know, that to me would be far from a sure thing.
Well, the good thing,
you know?
There's no agenda with Deontay Wilder. That's the thing that I really like about that.
Well, Wilder's, you know, fighting Tyson Fury in an even money fight.
I know. Fighting a crackhead that's been off for 3 years is pretty good. But we'll get to that in a minute.
You got the odds makers got it close to even money. So
I know, because when you got two guys that suck, it's a toss-up. But go ahead, John.
Well, I don't think it's being viewed that way.
I think it is. I think that's why nobody buys the fight.
Well, we're going to find out what happens with that. That's probably about a story not too far below the fight itself, because one thing they're doing with the pay-per-view is I don't like to see it, but they're taking a shot. If it goes their way, it's going to put a lot of bargaining power in the hands of Deontay Wilder. Or Tyson Fury, for that matter, if it goes well, and he comes away with a win. His bargaining, he's an entertaining character. His bargaining power is also going to be good. So they're reaching high with a gamble, and you know we're gonna find out after Saturday night how it pays off. People talk about the ticket sales, but the ticket sales aren't what's going to drive it. You know, that hasn't driven American boxing for years and years, but what happens with the pay-per-view
I don't remember a big heavyweight title fight with Evander Holyfield having a hard time selling out, or Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali. So I think people see through it for what it is.
No, but but that's boxing. It's a lot of it's just boxing in general. I mean, it's the pay-per-view attempt is probably premature in terms of where these guys are at. That's the thing. They're taking a shot at it now. It's probably premature, but again, it's a gamble that we're going to see if it's going to pay off or not. If it pays off, it's going to pay off big, and that's probably what they're looking at, and that's certainly far from a sure thing. Probably odds are against them. It's just going to be a question of, you know, what's going to be the tipping point for making enough money where they gain leverage or they lose leverage, and that's all
right. So we're going to talk about that fight in a minute. So we're going to go ahead, and John, since you're already on here talking, Einreinhofer, what's your take on Luis Ortiz and Travis Kaufman? I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same take as the Joe Joyce fight.
Yeah, it's another mismatch. But the only thing I'm going to throw in about Kaufman is, you know, he's come up a little short against Areola and Mansour, and of course that's not good. But and the guy's a massive underdog, and I'm not saying he may not go out quickly, but the guy's skills are actually underrated. He does have some skills, but he's a massive underdog, and of course Ortiz has the power and the amateur background, and I'm not expecting that he won't get Kaufman out of there, but Kaufman does have some skills, but this is just not a caliber of opposition he's shown that he's ready to come out on top against.
All right, John Raspanti, what's your take on the Kaufman-Ortiz fight?
It should be an easy night for Ortiz. Obviously, he wants another shot at the big guys, and Kaufman. That's true. The Mansour fight, when Kaufman fought Mansour and Areola, he had a no decision Areola and lost a decision to Mansour. And he's kind of a slow heavyweight. He does do a few things good, like John was saying. But I think Ortiz he's just got too much pedigree. Obviously, we all know this, and he'll just box him silly. Probably stop him in 6, maybe less. That's what I'm thinking. Well, maybe later. 6, 7 rounds, something like that. I just think if Ortiz is motivated, he wins by stoppage pretty easily. If he's bored, the fight goes later and he wins the decision. It just depends, to me, on Ortiz. Doesn't matter if he's 39 or 49. He's just got too much skill and technique for Kaufman.
Yeah, but the one thing that I question here is I think Kaufman's got a little bit of skill too. I agree with John Einreinhofer there, Jeremiah. And I still question if Kaufman can get through 6 or 7 rounds, what happens after that? Does Kaufman then have a better chance?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, Kaufman, as you guys alluded to, I mean, it's not as if he's, a fighting dunce. I mean, this is a guy who does have some craftiness to his game. But yeah, I mean, you have to think that at some point, Ortiz's age is really going to, I mean, maybe you can say it helped catch up to him against Wilder. But yeah, I mean, Kaufman might have, a better chance if it goes late. The problem is he's just not a big puncher. And they intentionally do this so a guy can't get upset. So, if Ortiz can lull him, to sleep with that right hand like he does just about all his other opponents, I see an easy decision win here. Again, Kaufman himself is kind of like the thinker. He likes to be crafty as well. So if you're outcrafted by somebody who's just better at that, again, I just don't think you've got much of a chance here. I'm picking Ortiz by decision. Actually, I think Kaufman has enough to go the full distance.
All right, next up we got Jarrett Hurd against Jason Wellborn, who's 24-6, 7 knockouts. He's been knocked out 3 times. He did win back-to-back fights over Tommy Langford over in the UK. I think it was in Birmingham, the last fight. I think this is the same kind of fight we have already talked about twice, John Raspanti.
Yeah, it looks that way. 7 knockouts, and it's just what Jeremiah alluded to. It makes it so the upset is almost impossible. The guy's only got 7 knockouts. We all know that Jarrett Hurd has a hell of a chin anyway. So, yeah, he's coming back from injury, and he obviously another showcase fight, should win it easy. Shouldn't be a problem for him. Wellborn has fought Langford, as you said, and I think he fought Macklin a few years ago, if I remember correctly, and even Liam Smith, as I'm remembering. But Hurd should have an easy time of it, win the fight easy. The guy's been knocked out. I expect Hurd to win by stoppage.
All right. Jeremiah, you agree, I assume?
No. Wellborn's, he's a real go-getter.
All right. We're going to stop right there. Wait, no. John Einreinhofer, who do you agree with between the two?
Yeah.
And a year from now, John, we're going to be bringing up to Jeremiah and pick Wellborn.
Let's just say I'm not picking Wellborn. Yeah. But I'm just looking for here.
Wellborn's mother isn't picking Wellborn. I mean, come on. The dude lost to a guy who's like 1896-8. I mean, come on. There's just no contest here.
Well, the thing that's amazing here, guys, is I saw on a British site where they're talking about, well, the only undercard fight worth watching is Wellborn because he beat Tommy Langford twice.
Oh,
that sounds like something from a British site. Yeah. I mean, it's just, for me, it's just the only interest is, Hurd had a shoulder injury, and shoulder injuries traditionally, they do hurt punching power, unfortunately, because Jarrett Hurd has been fighting so well. So I guess I'm going to just look here, and this is not what I want on a pay-per-view undercard, but I'm just going to be looking to see if Hurd's got his power back at least against this guy, and hope he can pick up close to where he left off. Because
I think it's possible he could not have his power back and still knock out Wellborn.
And I agree, and that's actually the problem with him being in with a Wellborn is that you're not even, and even he's not going to learn that. And so, what does it really prove? Yeah, that's part of the problem.
It proves nothing, so it goes in with all the other fights we see. That brings us to the main event: Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. I'm going to just ask each one of you to go one after the other here, and the question is simple: it's yes or no. because I keep seeing everybody refer to Tyson Fury as the lineal champion. I know they're all people that are working for the production and promotion of the fight. So we'll start off with Jeremiah Preisser. Is this for the lineal heavyweight championship of the world?
No.
John Raspanti.
No.
John Einreinhofer. I keep forgetting the last names.
I'm going to say yes, but I have to qualify it because I don't view Fury as lineal champion as the moment. But I think that he's the last guy to win it in the ring. The void hasn't been filled. Both guys are undefeated. Wilder's number 2. Fury's been back a couple of fights, even against low-level opposition.
What's
For me,
Fury rank?
it's going to be enough. It's going to be enough to be the winner, be it Fury or Wilder, be considered a lineal
So you
champion.
don't think the two best guys should have to fight to have a lineal champion if there is none?
I think that they should under ideal circumstances, but I think you've got a circumstance here where you got the last guy to win it in the ring. He's back fighting. He hasn't been beaten since. He's fighting a guy that everybody looks on as no worse than the number 2 guy. So if Fury wins, I can't picture not recognizing him as the lineal champion. And I think if Wilder, being the number 2 guy, he's beat the last guy to win it in the ring, I think that he would deserve the recognition. And make no mistake, I would hope that the winner of the fight, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but in an ideal world, I would want their next fight to be against Anthony Joshua, who I would certainly view as the number 1 contender. But I think it's somewhat, to me, it's not exactly like it, but it's somewhat like the Golovkin-Canelo Alvarez rematch, where I think, Transnational and the Ring both made the right decision in considering that to be for the vacant lineal middleweight title. And I agree with that decision. I think, to me, this is not the exact same situation, but it's a similar situation.
Okay. In Transnational, where is... Well, I'm trying to find it right now, but where do they have Tyson Fury ranked, Jeremiah, since you're on the board?
I know.
You better know right
the
now. You
heavyweight thing
should
was...
not have to think about this because you're on the board and you vote, Jeremiah. I looked up
you know
because
what?
of that. Don't let me down.
I think he's eighth or something like that, isn't he, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 8th or 9th, something like that.
So
I know I should know this,
how
but
could
we
a
haven't.
guy that's ranked 8th or 9th fight for a lineal title against a guy that's ranked number 2? That makes no sense to me.
There's definitely an argument against it, but I think it's because Fury is the last guy to win it in the ring. There's a presumption that titles should be decided in the ring. You don't want to get into the alphabet type of stuff where you can at all avoid it. And he hasn't been beaten in the ring since. He's got 2 wins. Granted, they're very low level.
They're joke
but
wins.
He's still undefeated.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is what the difference is.
All right, so since November of 2015, he's beat Sefer Seferi, Francisco Pianata, who went the distance with him. Sefer Seferi would have if he'd have wanted to. You got 2.5 years there when he's in a cocaine-induced stupor and he's depressed. I don't see how that qualifies you to fight for the lineal heavyweight championship of the world, Jeremiah.
Well, no, I mean, I think the problem is compounded by more than that as well. I mean, the Ring let him hang on to, their championship for a while, citing his mental health issues, yada, yada, yada. But I think it's compounded by more than just inactivity. I mean, not only was he inactive and retired, like 27 times, it seems like, but he was also, caught using performance-enhancing drugs and what got a suspended 2-year ban for it. His brother was caught as well, which for me shows that, the evidence is not in his favor. I mean, Tyson Fury said that it was wild boar, something that he ate. I just, again, when you layer those problems on top of one another, I just don't see. And not only that, it's one of those things too. When you have a champion, you expect him to act in a certain kind of way. And I do understand that things happen, and life can get in the way, and people can have mental health issues and whatnot. But just with all the things added up together, I just don't see it. And so And not only that, on top of that, I think this is the more salient point is that even if Deontay Wilder wins and he's the number 2 guy, and I'm not sure what Tyson Fury ranks for the ring, but for me, no matter who wins this fight, nobody is going to recognize them as the best heavyweight in the world. They would have to fight Anthony Joshua to make that clear. This doesn't make it clear.
John Einreinhofer. Or no, Raspanti. There we go. We're gonna have to stop having Raspanti on, John, because it just confusing me. But John Raspanti.
You're just getting back into the flow. That's all.
No, I always have trouble when we have him on. There's too many Johns.
Just got to use the last names, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Go ahead.
I agree with Jeremiah. Part of obviously the reason he got the fight too is he's a name, and he's a former champion, whatever you want to say, linear or not, and he's undefeated. Okay, his 2 wins obviously he looked bad or lackluster, whatever you want to say. They were jokes, like Mike said. I agree. It was. I mean, the crowd was booing him, and they were so excited when he was back, and then in his second fight by round 5 or 6, I recall they were booing. So he's a stinker fighter anyway, and that's how it is. But we'll talk about that in a little while, I'm sure. But it is what it is. It is the way the boxing scene is. It is the way the heavyweight division is now. There's not a lot of depth. There's no depth. Let's be honest. I mean, there's only a few guys that we pay real close attention to, and Wilder and Fury are 2 of them. And Fury because he beat Klitschko, and that's remember though that was 3 years ago now. Fury lost over 130 pounds. I mean, it's just he's got a tricky style and all that. We're going to talk about that later, I'm sure. But it is the way boxing is nowadays that he got a shot so quickly. That's unfortunately the way it is.
Yeah. And John Einreinhofer, I understand what you're saying because of the lineal thing, but I just think that being out for 2 years and coming back and beat Sefer Seferi and Francesco Pianata, or Pinata, as we like to call him back when he got yeah, I just...
That's what they call him in Italy.
I don't think he deserves a shot at Wilder. I don't think he deserves to be in the top 10. And I think this is a hand-picked fighter to make Wilder look better because 3 years ago, he won the worst fight in heavyweight championship history against Vladimir Klitschko.
I understand the argument against it not being a lineal heavyweight title fight, but for me, the drug issue that Jeremiah pointed out is important, but he got a deal where that was his suspension, so that was part of it. Again, I'm not going to go back into all that, but just I see that as not the same, but it's similar to the Canelo Alvarez Golovkin. But the odds makers have got this fight close to even money. They've got Wilder a very, very slight favorite. So, it's a competitive fight on paper going in. So, it's an intriguing fight. Now, as we've discussed in the past, it certainly has the possibility to be a dull fight. And there's no argument that, I think Fury Klitschko was the worst lineal heavyweight title fight of all time.
I still think maybe Ali Evangelista, but it's between those 2.
Yeah. But it was a little more exciting than Fury Klitschko. Yeah, just a dreadful fight. And I think, Fury's performance in that fight was overrated because he didn't generate any offense at all. It's just that Klitschko had even less because he was just so timid and obviously had hit the point where he was over the hill. So, it was not, but it was a guy that had a 10-year reign as heavyweight champ. And, the judges gave the nod to Fury. And, he was the guy that ended Klitschko's reign. So he was the last guy to, win the title in the ring.
Now, we've talked about this fight, and you hear a lot of people talk about how this can bring boxing back with these 2 guys. And I've watched all the build-up leading up to this. And I think this fight is actually bad for boxing, John Einreinhofer. And the reason I say that is this. These guys are the lowest common denominator. When I watch these guys speak at press conferences, Fury seems like a pretty smart guy, but he's missing something upstairs. I don't know what that is, but he's missing something. And Deontay Wilder just talks like a complete idiot. And I don't think that if you're trying to bring fans into boxing, that somebody who can barely talk English, that's the American, is a very good sell. And Tyson Fury, I mean, Deontay Wilder had a point. I saw him be interviewed today, and he said, if he would have done all the things Tyson Fury did, it wouldn't be talked up. He would just be a thug and a drug addict. And I agree with him there. But what we got is Tyson Fury, who basically was a drug addict, failed steroids test. He's going to get to fight Deontay Wilder, who, when I hear him talk, it just makes me want to smack my mama. It's horrible.
I think that the fight, this part is almost harder for me to predict the fight itself, which is, how is it going to, and I think it's almost as important as the fight itself, because we're talking about what, not just this fight alone, but combined with all the other things we talked about, the future of boxing and what it's going to be. How is this going to do? You haven't had an American heavyweight involved in a pay-per-view fight for a long period of time. I think it's been, over 12 years. If somehow it does hit and it does well, I don't think it's impossible. I think the odds are against it, because it might be a bit premature, but Wilder's
real quick, what
American
do you think is a good number here? What do you think would mean this was a success? Is it $1 million?
I don't think they can. I think I'm going to make a prediction, and I'm doing the numbers. I think they'll be satisfied with this. I wouldn't consider this the huge hit number, but I'm thinking maybe this does 300,000, which might be a little better than some people expect. But I think the hit number would probably be. I'm not saying it's going to do this, Mike, but yeah, if you wanted the blockbuster where they shot for the moon and they got it, I would say it would be 900,000 or $1 million. That would be the number that would shift all the bargaining power to Fury and Wilder.
Yeah, I agree, because a number of 300,000 I don't think does that.
Right. I don't think that quite does it either. I think that's one where behind the scenes they say we did okay on this. It's not a star-making leverage thing. They probably do okay on it. And then when you get below those kind of numbers, then you're doing poorly. If you get below 200,000, I'd say, then you're getting into the territory where it's just not really a success.
Well, see, I think it's not a success if it's under 500,000. If this is supposed to be two guys that some people think are fighting for the lineal heavyweight championship of the world, if it can't do 500,000 buys, I think that's a huge issue.
It is. I just think that's where boxing's at.
I do too. I expect this does between 300 and 400. And
I think they might be. I'm thinking 300. I think they'll probably be okay with that. The shock number would have to be something 900 to $1 million, which shifts everything, and then probably other business interests get interested in this kind of stuff, because these numbers that boxing does generate when it does well are huge, because you're charging $74.99 a pop.
All right, so when we look at this, John Raspanti, same question. What number do you think here we're going to get? What do you think it would have to be a success? And just with the general promotion, the way the fighters act, to me, this looks basically contrived.
Yeah, I don't think they just like each other like they're trying to say here lately. And I hear you, Mike, about the way Wilder speaks. But Joe Frazier didn't talk very well. Joe Louis didn't talk very well.
Wait a second. Joe Frazier was a quiet guy, though. Joe Frazier wasn't running his mouth. Joe Frazier,
I think he's doing that on purpose.
But people paid to see Joe Frazier because, they liked Joe Frazier because he was quiet. That everybody hated Ali because he ran his mouth. Or half the people hated him, half the people loved him. Joe Frazier did not open his mouth and show ignorance every time he talked.
No, but he was mocked for the way he spoke. Trust me, I was around then.
But I'm not talking about that was kind of because he kind of talks slow and everything. With Wilder I hate to ask you this question, but he doesn't speak real well.
No, he doesn't. But like I said, there are a number of fighters, and Joe Louis was another one who didn't speak very well. Wilder obviously speaks badly, and maybe it would help him to get some lessons. But I don't think he's a bad guy, actually. I think he's actually I think he's been trying to sell the fight. He's not done a good job with it. I don't know who told him that saying all these controversial things or whatever in the last few months, that Mike Tyson comment, whatever, was going to help sell the fight, make him more popular. It actually made him more disliked in a lot of ways. And it's because of his flaws in the ring, too, that make it hard. Those two guys that I just mentioned, I mean, they were great fighters, obviously. So there's a different
it didn't matter what they did outside of the ring.
Pretty much,
because
right.
Because people wanted to see them fight because they were great fighters. And that's the thing about this. Deontay Wilder is nowhere near a great fighter. And that's why, to me, asking $75 for this, I'm the biggest boxing fan you'll ever find. I bought pay-per-views that, like John Einreinhofer did, we've talked about it before, 20 years ago, that now we sit back and just look at it and say, why in the hell did I pay for that? I guarantee you this, a week from now, I'm not going to be saying, why in the hell did I buy that? If I buy it, I'm going to look at my cable bill and think, damn, that was stupid.
Yeah, and they're not going to do. I'll be surprised if they do 300,000. To be obvious, to be honest, I think, boy, I think it's possible they might not even do 200,000. To be honest, there's just no buzz about this fight as far as I'm concerned. We were talking about that on our show. I don't know if it's the lack of PR. I don't know if it's the lack of the fighters. The all access documentaries have been fun. I like those, just like the ones on HBO, the 24/7. But there's no buzz. And that's the other thing you miss, and that tells you a lot about the way it is that years ago, there was always a buzz with heavyweight fights, even some of the ones that were not considered great fights. Even if they were just good, there was something. It's just so different now. Now, if Joshua fights Wilder someday, there will be a buzz because the fight will probably be in England, and they know how to promote it.
It's going to have to be a buzz. It's going to have to be in England.
It is. They start 6 months early, too. They have their first press conference 6 months before the fight, and they sell the tickets out. So they know how to do it. We don't know how to do it, but I don't want to blame the team that's trying to promote the fight. I think it's also the fighters. Fury is an interesting guy, no doubt about it. I agree with you, Mike. He's an intelligent guy.
Deontay Wilder's a hard sell, though.
He is, but Fury is a wacky guy, no doubt about that. He's kind of a funny, wacky guy, kind of a likable, wacky guy. He's tried to sell the fight. It just isn't working. They admitted a while ago that they got nothing against each other. So this intense animosity they're trying to show, it's all just a sell job, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't always work, and this time it's not working. And as somebody said, it might have been you, Mike, a little while ago, the real problem is the fighters aren't considered that good. If these were guys that were considered really great fighters, like when Sugar Ray Leonard fought Tommy Hearns. That was incredible.
That was CBS Nightly News is doing updates on the training camps then.
There you go. Here you got two guys. They're 67-0 with their records, right? Wilder's 40-0 with 39 knockouts. That's great. But very, very, you look at his record and you go, oh, well, Ortiz, okay. But I think that's it too. So it's just been probably a nightmare sell for everybody involved. If they should have sold that fight out within a day after it was announced. Yeah. If that's true, what you guys are hearing, that they've only got
80,000 tickets at Wembley in about 2 hours tops.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Wembley, the tickets are a lot cheaper in Wembley too. They're not charging near the kind of prices that charge in the United States.
I don't think you can sell tickets in Alabama at $20 a pop and put 80,000 people in Deontay Wilder's home state in to watch this fight.
Nah, you couldn't.
No, you could do it for the when you charge low ticket prices. The U.S. still generates much more money for their big fights than the UK does. It's not even close.
Yeah, but
even
no
Eddie Hearn has invented that.
This is a big fight.
There's always big fights here. You just had Canelo and Triple G fight here, and neither of them are Americans.
Yeah.
You can't do that in the UK.
Yeah, but those are two very good fighters. Those are two very good fighters.
Yes, that was my point. They were really yeah.
And this is the point. I paid for that fight. It was a great fight. I loved watching the fight. It was competitive. They went after it like the old days. And when I got my cable bill and it was $100 more, I thought, why in the hell did I do that?
True.
It
Well, that's the
wasn't
problem
worth
with
it.
boxing. That's the problem with boxing's model. I don't disagree with that point. I think that's a problem where boxing is just in general, though. That's a problem. I don't think that's a problem with Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury. I think Wilder. When he's interviewed and he's not trying to put on a show or something, I think he comes across fine. The guy's got 39 knockouts in 40 fights.
Yeah.
He's undefeated.
Who doesn't when they beat the hell out of bums? I mean, they're guys that can't fight. I mean, he's got Luis Ortiz, and that's it.
He's beaten Stavern when that fight was even money
he beat
going
Laverne
in.
and Sterling, whatever the hell his name is. Berman Stavern. Who did Berman Stavern beat to beat a champion?
It was an even money fight going in. Stavern.
Do you not remember?
Because
I'm pretty sure it was Chris Arreola. I don't care what's even money. It's even money because nobody gives a shit. I mean, I'm sorry.
Stavern was ranked, but Stavern was ranked at the top of the division at the time. So
who did he beat?
You can't have a moving target when he beats contenders that are at the top of the division, and then you move the target again.
If you're beating guys that aren't very good, you can't be blamed for that. All right, I get that.
Well, he beat Luis. He beat Luis Ortiz. He knocked him out.
Yeah. Well, just answer me this, because you never have. In that fight, when they gave him the extra 20 seconds at the start of the round, why did they give him that?
Well, they gave him that, Mike, because the referee had the doctor take a look at him, just like they look at a cut and things like that.
So don't you think that it's
with the New York,
wait a second.
With the New York,
I've never seen that.
No, wait a second. Which the New York Commission said that's been part of their procedure. It was part of the procedure since they had the Perez fight where you had the serious injury. The New York Commission's been careful about that. So it's something that happens.
Can you show me another fight where it happened?
It's happened in other fights in New York.
What fight?
It's just the doctor just checking on the guy to see if he's okay.
He had a minute to check on him in between rounds.
The referees have done that with cuts throughout history.
This isn't a cut.
Now they're being more cautious about fighters' mental faculties with issues about head injuries and things like that, and liability checking it. Yeah, well, if you got any evidence there was a conspiracy theory, come out with it. Tell me
this is the
how
thing.
it happened.
I don't need evidence for a fucking conspiracy theory. I sit there and I watch the fight. He got knocked down or almost got knocked down. They fight for a while in the round. They didn't stop it then. He sits for a minute in between rounds. He stands up. They could have come in and looked at him 10 seconds before the bell rings instead of doing something that affects the fight. And I'm sorry, but I don't think for 1 second that Luis Ortiz would have got that. And also, my evidence is this. He's the house fighter. It's boxing. It's always been that way. It's why, you get Pernell Whitaker goes to France and loses to Ramirez. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's boxing. And to sit there and say that it's a conspiracy theory that a house fighter might get a little bit of an advantage, it's just asinine if you're a boxing fan, because you watch it for years. It happens all the time. And all I'm saying is this. He got stunned with 30 seconds left in the round. He finished the round. He sat down. Nobody went and checked on him when he was sitting in the corner, John. If they're worried about the fighters, why wouldn't they go look at him and then when the round starts, have him walk to him and then tell him he's all right and go on? Why would you have no contact with him until the doctor pops up after the minute's over and then they check him out? And then they let him walk to one corner and back. I mean, if he is so hurt that he has to be checked and you got to let him walk all the way down there and back, why wouldn't you just stop the fight? Because, as you said, they're more worried about the fighter's safety.
So the referee, Mike, had a conspiracy theory in mind when Ortiz got knocked down early.
The only person that says anything about a conspiracy theory is you.
Early in the fight, when Ortiz got knocked down, the referee could have stopped it there and given Wilder a win. But he decided, I'm going to wait a few more rounds until Deontay Wilder gets hurt. Then after the bell rings to start the next round, I'm going to go to the doctor and have them look at him for an extra 20 seconds so Wilder can come back and knock out Ortiz. Is that really make a lot of sense?
So what makes sense to you is after he's in trouble to give him a minute and 20, 25 seconds to recover.
Well, he didn't give him a minute, 20, 25 seconds.
What did he
You
give
had
him?
the doctor look at him when the next round started to see if the fight should continue.
That's a minute and 20 seconds.
Why would he have the so the doctor had to be in on it then too. So he had to know that the doctor wouldn't stop the fight.
Are you really this fucking blinded by fighters that you're so in their ass that this happens all the time? Because they had a minute to fucking check on him, John. If they were worried about his health and well-being, why wouldn't a doctor immediately go to that corner and check on him? Just answer that. That's all I want to know. That's the only question I have is why didn't they check on him then?
It's simply that the ref looked at it, wanted to see what the doctor thought at that point. That's all. It happens in
why didn't he bring
fights all the time. Happens all the time with cuts.
That makes no sense. So it took him a whole minute to figure out that maybe the doctor should come up and check the boxer.
He just looked at what he saw at that time and had the doctor take a look at him. There's a lot of times the referee has the doctor take a look at the fighter.
After a minute rest.
How do you know that? So how do you know that the doctor wasn't going to stop the fight when he had the doctor take a look at him?
So my question is this. After a minute, and then you call him up, why is he calling him up after a minute? Does Wilder look like there might be some problems?
Apparently that's what the referee thought.
So why wouldn't the fight be stopped? He had a whole minute to recover, and he couldn't.
Well, he wanted to have the doctor take a look at him.
Okay. John Raspanti, what do you think? Because I really don't know what you think about this. So.
It's one of those things where, yeah, it was odd. You know, I'm not going to say it's a conspiracy theory, and I'm not going to. I thought it was strange, and I that is true. I have seen. I can't name the fights, Mike, but I have seen where in New York City they have tried to be a little bit more careful, but it was very strange. That
hey,
he got
real quick,
so much
John
time.
Raspanti, in my defense, so have I.
Yes.
I just banking on John couldn't come up with one off the top of his head. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, all right, good. I wasn't seeing things, but yeah, it's hard to remember. But I did, when I was watching it, I was talking out loud to the TV saying, what the hell is this? You know, what is going on here? It seems strange. But then again, there's always another possibility that using the word we like, that they just fucked up. You know, I mean, maybe.
Hey!
That.
You can't come as a guest on this show and drop F-bombs. That's just me and Jeremiah that can
Well,
do
I just
that.
heard, didn't I? Oh, okay. I apologize then. Fuck. I mean, sorry.
Hey,
So
come on. Me and Jeremiah are grandfathered in. We've been doing this for like 3 years. John's only at 2 years, I think. John gets another 6 months, and then he's allowed to say fuck too.
Yeah, well, there you go. But it's just, and it's true, Mike, what you said. Boxing has so many shading things in its history, so many shading things in its recent history. So it's hard when these things go on that you don't think, oh man, who's in the bag, who's in their pocket, what is? But John has a point too. I mean, it would have to be some kind of a conspiracy that runs through the whole thing. So I don't know. I just thought that it was very peculiar, I'll use that word, that Wilder was allowed that much time. Because if you guys remember, he was in bad shape. I thought he was going to go down a couple of times, and he got a lot of time to get to recover. And that's how I'll leave it. I just thought it was very, very peculiar.
All right, Jeremiah.
Oh yeah, I'm on board with that. I mean, I thought it was odd too. I mean, yeah, we can say that the New York State Athletic Commission, they do that. I guess, I guess the ref cited, he said that he's seen it a number of times, but it sure as hell ain't commonplace. I mean,
Nope.
It's a rarity, absolutely. And that fight was not as brutal as Magomed.
Yes.
I can't remember the name. Magomed versus Mike Perez. It was not on that scale of brutality. I mean, the first 4 or 5 rounds were, it was a lot of feeling out, and there was hardly any clean punches landed. It just wasn't on that scale. And so, no, I thought the same thing as Raspanti. I thought it was odd. And again, my mind races to the same place. It's like, why are they doing this? I mean, the guy I calculated the guy got like a minute and 22 to recover. And then you count the walk to the corner, and the dude's got, like a minute and 25 seconds to get to his senses. And yeah, I mean, I suppose the doctor may have to be in on it, but you never really know. Again, there's been some real shady stuff, plenty of stuff that we haven't uncovered that's been going on for many years.
Plenty of stuff
I mean,
we don't even know
remember
about.
Oh, tons of it. Because there's no investigative journalism. Nobody's uncovering the dirt,
Right.
so they don't have to cover their tracks as well. And I know you guys, at least two of you saw the video that I posted a while back where that manager was saying, that he would go into gyms and he'd use coded language. But if you read the article that he wrote for Deadspin as well, he actually elaborates on that further and says that if he felt as if his guy was in too much trouble or as if he wanted a fight stopped at a certain time, he would just nod to the corner man and they would throw in a towel or something like that. So there are plenty of ways to work those sort of things in. So again, you can't say that it was part of this elaborate scheme, because you don't have the full-on evidence. But yeah, it was definitely odd.
All right. When we look at this fight, and we're going to go ahead and let you guys break it down, what do you think is the biggest key to this fight, John Raspanti?
Well, Fury to me is a question mark. The biggest key to me is, what does Fury have? What will he be on Saturday night? Will he be like he was 3 years ago? Now, again, that's not saying he was great, but he's got that tricky style that can cause a guy like Wilder and a timid guy like Klitschko a lot of problems. Now, I think Wilder's going to go after him hard, and he's not going to be timid. But I think, to me, that's the key is, what Fury do we have? I think Wilder is going to be pumped. He really wants to knock out Fury, not because he dislikes him, just because he figures, and he's right, if he knocks out Fury, he can scream, "I want Joshua," and all that stuff. So it's going to be, to me, what Fury brings to the table. If he gets knocked out in a round or two and he looks sluggish, well, that's not good. But again, where he's come from, it's possible. I don't care how he looks when he's training or whatever, sparring. So that's my key. What does Fury have? What will he have when he gets in the ring? I actually think he's going to be pretty sharp, but I still have my doubts.
All right, my question here will go to John. Let's get away from the John, so I don't have to say a last name. Jeremiah. My thing has always been this. I think the easiest way to beat Deontay Wilder, and I'll give John a chance to respond to this too, Einreinhofer. I think the easiest way to beat him is when you watch his leverage. I don't think he's got it. I think he fights a lot of times with either his legs too close together, too far apart. I think the guy that eventually knocks him out is the guy that just goes forward, sticks his head in his chest, and bangs away at him. Do you think Tyson Fury, number one, do you agree that that's the way to beat him? And number two, do you believe Tyson Fury possesses the ability to do that?
Well, yeah, I actually think because Wilder lacks so much fundamentally, I think that you could beat him by sticking and moving, and I believe you can beat him by roughing him up and out, infighting him. I even think that, potentially, a guy could even beat him in the middle of the ring by outboxing him. So I think there are a number of ways to beat him, but I do think that if you want to get the job done and get in his head, I think the best course of action is to go right at him. And I'm not convinced that Tyson Fury has that in him. I know he's pretty fond of his boxing style and, brags about his skills and, about how it's impregnable, his defense is impregnable and yada, yada, yada. But I have seen, he does show glimpses from time to time that he can be aggressive, that he can be physical. He did a little bit of that in his last two fights. I actually think he body punches pretty good for a real big heavyweight. And I think, maybe even Ricky Hatton has something to do with that. But I do think that the best course of action is rough him up, get him on the ropes, outfight him. The guy doesn't sit down on his – he has good power. There's no doubt about that. And I wouldn't deny that he's one of the biggest punchers in the heavyweight division today, possibly the biggest one. But it's one of those things where all the stars have to align. He just throws so many punches without – sitting down on them, that a lot of times he's not doing the damage that he could. He's slapping with his hooks. He's not sitting down on his right hands. So if you had somebody who just went right at him, bullied him, went to the ropes, pounded on him, grabbed him, held him, wore him down, I think you could definitely win that weight. It's just a matter of whether or not. I just don't think Tyson Fury is one of those guys who can commit to that game plan for as long as he needs to get the job done.
Yeah, I don't think he is, too. And John Einreinhofer, when I look at this fight, we talk about where he can get to the point where he can be a 60-40 or 50-50 with Anthony Joshua, I think a first-round blowout win would be the worst thing that could happen to him, because I think the best thing that could happen to him would be to get a Tyson Fury that does show some resistance and looks halfway decent, and he stops him around the 5th or 6th round, because I think then people take Fury more, or they take him more serious beating Fury like that than if he just blasts Fury in a round, because then everybody's just going to assume those 3 years in between is what got him.
Yeah, I actually tend to agree with that. I mean, Wilder can't think of that when he's going in there, but I think in terms of marketing, I think that's
well,
probably
he can't help
true.
how good Fury is. I mean, and I think this also, my other question is, I have questions whether either one of them would ever just go after each other, but if I want to see Wilder and I want to be impressed by Wilder, the way he could impress me, John, would be if he went right after him.
Yeah, I don't think he'll quite do that. I mean, you talked about keys before. I think that there's two keys for me. Even though I've been a believer in Wilder for a while now, I don't like Wilder when he weighs in over 220 pounds, and the weigh-in's Friday, so you never know. And Wilder or any fighter, you never know what's going on behind the scenes. So I don't assume anything. If he were to come in over 220. I just always think he hurts his chances to win. When he's under 220, he can move, and he's got the speed to go along with his power. And you talk about what might beat him. See, I think what people underestimate about him, and you did see that in the first Severn fight, is he's got a really good jab. He's 6'7", he's got the reach, and he's got the right hand to bring behind it. When he's under 220 pounds or under, I mean, he can move around the ring, and he can keep hitting you with the 1-2 and put a lot of hurt on you. And I think he can do that to a lot of people if he has to. I think his vulnerability probably is to, I just think simply to somebody that would counter him with power. And that's where Fury, to me, does not fit, because Fury will not commit to countering with power. Fury does that pity-pat stuff. Like Mark Breland, I think, really accurately said, Fury, he fights like a basketball player, and you see in these NBA fights. In the old days,
Wilder, because he does that windmill swinging thing. It's just like the old Ralph
Sampson, when he gets the guy hurt,
fight in the finals.
But when he gets the guy hurt, but what Fury does that with his punching all the time. I mean, he doesn't get leverage.
Come on, Wilder does not have a great jab. Nowhere near it. Every once in a while, he throws a good jab.
I think Wilder. I disagree with that. I think Wilder does have an excellent jab.
Excellent.
I think the other key to me though is that's where it can be neutralized, and you saw that in the Ortiz fight in the earlier rounds, is because Ortiz is a southpaw, and Fury does a lot of southpaw fighting. That could be some trouble for Wilder, but I just don't think Fury will bring the offense. So I think that. Fury will probably try to just stink it out, like Breland says. I agree with that, and turn southpaw, and that might slow Wilder up for a while. But I think Wilder's stamina is also underrated, and I think it'll just be more. He'll keep after Fury, and as the fight gets into the later rounds, he might start getting the 1-2 in, start getting the right hand in, and I think he'll probably get to Fury in the later rounds.
See, I don't see how excellent to me means he has one of the best jabs in heavyweight history, because I don't see how you get much better than excellent. Are you saying that his jab is up there with Sonny Liston and Larry Holmes, guys like that?
Well, I think he's got the potential. When his career, the dust settles on his career, if he has to use it, you're gonna look at his jab more with those guys. I'm not going to say it's as good, but I think it is that type of a jab. You saw Paulie Malignaggi talk about Wilder's jab that way.
I did because I don't listen to Paulie Malignaggi because he's usually full of shit. But just my opinion.
But he did make the comparison, and I he was talking about with Larry Holmes, and there's things as I've mentioned before, and when John's been on the show, we've talked about it too. I think Wilder does have some poor man's Larry Holmes attributes with the jab, the 1-2. And when he's got to move around the ring a little bit, which he's really only had to do in the first Stavern fight. But we did see that he can do it. I wouldn't see that would come in against Fury, but boxing can be a crazy sport like that where unforeseen things can happen. I don't see that happening right now in this fight, but again, strange things can sometimes happen.
All right. So what's your take on his jab, Jeremiah? Is it excellent?
Uh,
Larry Holmes?
No, it's definitely not. I mean, I'm not impressed by much that he does, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just one of those things. Like I look at his jab, and he almost has this kind of like I guess in a way there's sort of like a Larry Holmes thing, but it reminds me more of Jermaine Taylor, where he'll throw it and then he brings it back down to the hip. It's just for me, it's he just lacks nuance. I mean, he doesn't feint as well as he should. I mean, he doesn't double or triple it like he should. I mean, he looked almost completely lost against Luis Ortiz. And Einreinhofer touched on this about how the southpaw stance gave Deontay Wilder something to think about, and he was pretty confused. I actually think that not only is his jab not that good, I think Fury will out jab him. Especially if he sticks to the southpaw stance the whole fight, and I don't see it as an excellent punch.
All right, John.
But Jeremiah, you did when you ranked the top jabs in boxing, though, you did have Wilder in there.
Yeah, I did, but it's because if there's a heavyweight who uses it consistently, it's him. It's just when I compare it to Vladimir Klitschko's, I wouldn't see it anywhere near the same playing field as that.
All right, John, you were supposed to respond to that, and we got an uncomfortable.
Well, I think he does. I think he does. I mean, I agree with Jeremiah's assessment when he did the rankings. I do think Wilder has one of the best jabs in boxing.
Where did you have him ranked, Jeremiah?
Oh, geez, I can't even remember.
Well, you wrote the article.
Yeah, I know, but
it's on our website. It should be on our website somewhere there, Mike.
Well, do you remember, John?
I think it was in the top 10.
Oh, well, then, Jeremiah, you're a fucking idiot. John Raspanti, what do you think?
Sorry, Jeremiah, I couldn't resist that one. That ranking should still be up on the Grueling Truth somewhere out there.
Wilder's jab, it's an insult to Larry Holmes to even mention the two of them in the same breath. I think Larry Holmes had a great jab. Muhammad Ali had a great jab. Sonny Liston had a great jab. Joe Louis had a hell of a jab. Wilder has a jab. It can be effective. I wouldn't make it great. I would say it's average. He's a heavyweight.
It's
so
not consistent enough, I think, is the problem with me. I mean, go ahead.
What was that?
I'm sorry. I said, to me, it's just not consistent. I mean, sometimes it looks great. Most of the time, I don't think it does.
Well, that's a good point, and I don't think I've ever seen it look great. He tried to jab against Ortiz. Ortiz nullified it. He kept dropping his right hand when he was throwing the jab, and Ortiz saw that. So it's hard with him because he I'm with Jeremiah. It's hard to see anything that you go, wow, other than his power. He obviously has power, but you would think after 40 fights that some of these flaws would be tweaked or better. I was watching All Access, and his trainer was saying that he's going to surprise a lot of people on Saturday with his boxing ability.
If he tries to do that, I think he could have problems.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, his jab is better than average, I guess. But again, you have to qualify it. That's the point.
Well, let me ask this question, because you brought it up about the Ortiz fight. So we'll go to Jeremiah here. Jeremiah, I know that you had him ranked 11th from looking at the article right now. But you also said, we'll know for sure after we see him against an aged but formidable Luis Ortiz. Did the Ortiz fight solidify him at number 11 in your mind? Did it move him up, or did it drop him down?
No, I think it would drop him down, because if there's one thing that I like to see in a guy who is a great jabber, or an excellent jabber, or whatever you want to label, it is a guy who is consistent jabbing against both the orthodox and southpaw stance. And there was who was it that I was watching not long ago that I was impressed because they jabbed consistently against both. But no, I think it didn't play well for Deontay Wilder because he was just outthought. He wasn't jabbing consistently, and it looked bad in my opinion because it would have helped set up his right hand But again, he just wasn't using it consistently. He was like a lot of orthodox fighters where they stop using it because of the angles. And for me, it just didn't reflect well on his ring IQ. So, no, I would drop him because of it.
All right, so let's go ahead and get everybody's predictions. We'll start off with John Raspanti.
Well, it is a close fight in a lot of ways for everything that we've mentioned. You can see all kinds of scenarios. Well, just actually not all kinds of scenarios. You can see a few scenarios. Like Mike said, you could see an early knockout. That's possible. You could see a late stoppage by Wilder. You could see a decision win by Fury. I think all of that's possible. I think I'm going with Wilder. I think he's gonna catch him late. I think Fury's going to do well in the beginning. I think he's going to outbox him, make Wilder crazy. But I just have a feeling that Wilder wants it more. I can't point at anything that makes me say that. It's just a feeling. And I think if he can get Fury deep into the fight, Fury might get a little tired. The inactivity, obviously, I think it's got to hurt him at some point. And he's going to get caught. I know he likes to talk about his defense, and he's very crafty, very shifty. He uses feints well, all that. He'll counter Wilder crazy probably at times. And the key for Fury is if he hurts Wilder, then everything, all bets are off. But I do believe that Wilder get him late, and I also think it's possible that Wilder could get the decision. I think if Fury's, as we like to say nowadays, running around, even though it's really just boxing, and Wilder is pursuing him, and Fury lands like 3 or 4 little pity-pat punches, and Wilder lands one big one, he might get the round there in a lot of judges' opinions. So I could see Wilder winning a split decision or something, but I just think he could easily stop him as well, late.
All right, John Raspanti. Damn, Einreinhofer.
Yeah, I think, I think this is... this is an intriguing fight. I think the buzz within the boxing community, people like ourselves who are following this stuff all the time, is actually pretty good. But, it's just premature in terms of getting this probably out to the more general public. But with the fight itself, I think, I just think Fury, he'll probably fight this, like he did with Klitschko. I think that for me, Fury, maybe he's not going to be what he was 3 years ago, but I think that the Wilder would beat the Fury of 3 years ago who fought against Klitschko. I just don't think that Fury generates enough offense with those pity-pat punches and his being really defensive. I think early in the fight, especially if he shifts to southpaw, I think Fury might cause Wilder to be a bit tentative and things like that, and there might not be a lot of action. But I just don't see scenarios where Fury's landing a lot of punches, or certainly any significant punches. And I think Fury being so defensive, I think the difference between Wilder and the older Vladimir Klitschko is that, I don't think Wilder will be recklessly going after him, but he'll be putting the mental pressure on by trying to get to him, probably finding the range more later in the fight. Like he did against Ortiz, and then maybe starting to land his jab more and getting more right hands in. And I think that Wilder's speed will be underrated. And then I think also Wilder, being that if he weighs 220 or under, I think his stamina is also underrated. And I think he'll start to wear Fury down, just even with the mental pressure. Fury just trying to defend. And I think about the 9th round or so, Wilder will start getting in some big shots to a tired Fury and get him out of there. But I agree with John Raspanti. Some people have said a Wilder decision's out of the question in this fight. I don't think it is. I think under the scenario I described, if somehow Wilder doesn't get to Fury at the end, and maybe there isn't even the spots in the fight where there ends up being a lot of action, it could be that, Wilder maybe gets a decision, and maybe some people aren't happy just because there's not a lot of punches landed or something like that. But I think I'm going to go with Wilder by the stoppage around the 9th round. I think he'll eventually get to Fury.
All right, Jeremiah.
I don't think Wilder does get to Fury. I think because of Wilder's poor footwork, I think Fury's going to counterpunch him all night long. With the heavyweight division, there's always room for potential the power shots, right? The one shot that could end the entire fight. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Fury's just going to stick and move all night long, and I think again he's just going to set traps and counterpunch Wilder, and I think he's going to earn his decision win here.
So you're picking Wilder or Fury?
No, I'm picking Fury. Yep.
Okay. I think this is going to be a boring fight. I think Fury will move around a lot. I'm not going to say he's going to box his ears off because I don't think he'll throw enough punches to box anything off. Wilder, I'm sorry, guys. Neither one of these guys do anything for me. The Fury of 3 years ago, comparing him to Wilder of now, does nothing for me because I don't think either one of these guys are any good. And I know you all know that this is the way I've always felt. And that's why I have no excitement here. I think it's crazy to even think this could be a lineal title fight, especially when Anthony Joshua is beating much better competition than either one of these guys. Come on. I think Dillian White would kick Tyson Fury's ass right now. And I'll tell you, the other thing is this. I think Dillian White would kick Deontay Wilder's ass too, but we're not going to have that argument until after this fight, John. So, because I think Dillian White would have the balls to go get him. And the thing I don't see with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, and why I don't like them, is I don't see guys that go get it. I watched Deontay Wilder almost turn and run away or ran backwards from Luis Ortiz in the third round. He didn't fight him until he had him wore down a little bit. I don't see two guys that are going out to be great. I see two guys that are going out to play it safe, hope they win and make a lot of money. You say what you want about Anthony Joshua getting knocked down by Vladimir Klitschko, but he got back up, he fought on, and I think that Klitschko, even though it was a year or so later, was better than the Klitschko that fought Fury. I think that Klitschko was bored. And fighting Fury, he was fighting a guy that was bigger than him, and guys that were close to his size or a little bit taller always gave him trouble. I think he lost that fight out of sheer boredom. What I expect to happen here is these two guys to look at each other for 12 rounds. Deontay Wilder will win the decision because it's a conspiracy when the house fighter wins a decision. And I'm not saying that I'm going to think Fury won that decision. I'm going to say if I sit there and watch 12 rounds of this, I'm probably going to scratch my eyes out because I don't expect much to happen. Now, I think it's also possible one of them could knock the other one out around the 6th or 7th round just because they put each other to sleep, somebody gets lucky. But what I see here is a fight where two guys are going to stand there and look at each other. Not much is going to get done. And then they're both going to talk shit after the fight and try to get a rematch because neither one of them is going to be able to fight Anthony Joshua. And I don't think Anthony Joshua is that good. I just think he's a lot better than either one of these guys. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up for tonight. We're going to give everybody a chance to have their last word. We're going to start off with our guest tonight. And remember, go to Amazon, buy Intimate Warfare if you haven't read it yet. It's one of the best boxing books I've read in the last decade. So make sure you go out and get that. John Raspanti, Dennis Taylor, Ed Mulholland. John Raspanti, final words?
I appreciate all that, Mike. I appreciate how you always sell Intimate Warfare. And, yes, it's a great Christmas gift for your boxing fan in your life. And it is the time now. It's only 20-some days until Christmas, so get that on Amazon, please. Make my Christmas a nice one. But I just want to say thanks a lot for being on the show with you guys. It was always a pleasure, always enjoyable, informative. And I kind of said in my article on Max Boxing that I'm kind of thinking the fight could be a stinker too, Mike. So I hope we're wrong, but we'll just have to see.
I don't, because if I'm not paying for it, I want it to be really boring because I don't want to feel like I missed out on something. John Einreinhofer, I still love you no matter what we say to each other. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I mean, there is a possibility. I certainly can't eliminate the scenario that this is not an exciting fight, but I think there's some buzz within the boxing community. I'm just hoping against hope for the sport. I don't like pay-per-view coming back. That's why I have mixed emotions. But for the sport, American heavyweights, heavyweight title fight in the United States, if this fight did surprisingly well and it had enough intrigue in the ring, I think that would be a good thing if we woke up Sunday morning. I know Mike's feelings if you decide to sit one out and try to not have to put out the $75 and then it ends up being good, then you regret it and you feel a lot better if it was bad.
Hey, don't worry, John. I'll find a free stream.
All right. So I'd like for the sport, maybe for this fight to just do well and maybe bring some heavyweight being the biggest, most historic division in boxing, but bring a little bit of that back here in the U.S. But I can't say for sure that's going to happen. That's the underlying intrigue, and there is a scenario where this could be a bad fight because you saw Fury Klitschko, and well, I think in the end, Wilder Ortiz was a great fight. There were moments early in the fight where Wilder had to be tentative with Ortiz.
It wasn't a great fight. It was an entertaining fight, John. There's a difference.
I thought it ended up being a great fight. But,
Ali Frazier 3 was a great fight. Holyfield Bowe.
That was a great fight. No doubt about it.
And that
was one
Luis Ortiz and Deontay Wilder is nowhere near that.
It's not anywhere near Ali Frazier 1. No doubt about that.
Did you like how I said nowhere near that? I was doing my Deontay Wilder impersonation.
Yeah, but maybe I think like John said, I don't think Wilder's a bad guy. I think when he's interviewed and he's not trying to put on a show, he comes across fine with what he says and how he says it. But I think his forced attempts at marketing sometimes aren't the best. But hopefully.
Hey, that's where he reminds me a little bit of a poor man's Larry Holmes, John.
Yeah. Well, Holmes was criticized for, he was trying to imitate Ali
what I mean.
Career and the way he talked things. Yeah. And right, when you're just trying too hard, and then later on Larry Holmes just was what Larry Holmes was, and he ended up doing okay, just being himself. But, maybe, Tyson Fury, and even though Tyson Fury likes to talk, I think he's probably telling the truth here because, again, the money, and maybe the UK fans won't like it, but Fury said if he has a big performance here, he's looking to maybe just make his future the U.S. from here on out, which I suppose if the fight did well on pay-per-view, maybe he would. So, who knows? Maybe Tyson Fury will get bigger here, even if he has a good showing and the fight gives us something we didn't expect or something like that. But I'm just hoping something good comes out of this Saturday night, but I don't know for certain how it's going to go.
All right, Jeremiah.
Yeah, part of the cynic in me kind of wants this fight to flop badly. And honestly, there are a lot of things I want to flop badly just because of the state of the sport and, how, I'm trying to be an optimist in that regard where I'm like, well, maybe somebody will, clean up the ashes, like, something will rise from the ashes and maybe we'll get something that's respectable.
Real quick, my concern is that it's not a bad fight and people do get excited about it because then the only thing that means is we see more pay-per-view.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly why I'm a cynic about the whole thing too. And not only that, the styles matchup, and also one thing that I wanted to touch on about earlier, how you guys are like, oh well, the fan buzz really isn't that much. Well, one thing that I want to talk about Tyson Fury real quick is, yeah, Deontay Wilder, he's inarticulate. I don't find him very appealing at all. I know a lot of other people don't. When I visit these boxing groups, there only seems to be one segment of society that seems to latch onto that. And with Tyson Fury, it seems as if, yeah, he's fun and he's charismatic and whatnot, but it also feels like he's not ever going to be 100% because mentally, once you detach yourself from the sport the way he did, and leave for 3 years, mentally it's just hard to regain that. On top of that, it feels like he has 1 foot in, 1 foot out. He's not out there making statements like, well, I'm going to reign as the heavyweight champion for 10 years. I'm going to try to match Joe Louis on and on and on. His demeanor to me is, even if he says something like that, it's just not believable because what he's done in the past. So for me, it's just one of those things, like, not only stylistically could it be bad, not the card itself is bad, the characters themselves aren't all that appealing. It's also that where, we don't even know if with Tyson Fury, I'm not even sure if he wants to be a full-time fighter. So for me, that's just a recipe it's just a no-go for me, and I'm going to be illegally streaming it too. I don't care. It's not worth $75. And
nope.
Yeah, I'm not into it.
All right, my take on it is this, and mine is kind of playing off of yours. The thing is, when I watch Tyson Fury interviews from like a year ago, the thing he talks about is this. The reason he went downhill after Klitschko is his entire goal in life was to beat Klitschko and beat a champion. Once he did that, he felt like there was nothing else there. So this is a guy that had mental problems. He comes back. He's back in this situation again. And if your entire goal at one point was just to beat Vladimir Klitschko and beat a champion, and you've done that, that's a lot different than the goal of Deontay Wilder, who wants to be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And I think in the end, that's why I lean towards Wilder in this fight. And I think Wilder will win this fight. If Wilder doesn't win this fight, John Raspanti or John Einreinhofer, to me that means Deontay Wilder is even worse than what I think he is. Because I don't think Tyson Fury's heart is completely in this. I don't think that he's this overly talented guy. And I don't think that he's willing to sell out when it comes down to it to win a fight like this.
Yeah, it's real quick. It's like how many guys want to climb K2, over and over again, right? Like he already reached the summit, and he already, peered down at the rest of the world, and he's already been there, right? Again, how many people want to?
And I give Deontay Wilder credit for this. He was in a fight like that with Luis Ortiz, and he won the fight. I don't think that Tyson Fury would ever be in a fight like that and win it. I don't think. Intestinally, I don't think he's got the guts to. And I hate to say that about boxers because you have to have an extreme amount of guts to get in there. But I just think when the time comes in this fight, if Wilder makes him dig deep, I don't think Fury's going to have anything in there to bring up. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, Mike. And what you said about one being kind of there and kind of not. I mean, that's true. And if he's accomplished what he set out to do, which he's done, getting that motivation, trying to get back to where he was, he's not going to be able to do it mentally. And that's a very good point. And he might just say, hell with it. If Wilder knocks him down and he has a chance to get up and
take my money,
he's going to be like, look, I don't really want to be doing this anyway. So what's the point? So that's why there are so many intangibles in this fight, and in that way it makes it intriguing. We just really don't know and that's what was my point earlier, what Fury's going to be there. But mentally, and every boxer will ever tell you, it's so mental. Boxing is so mental. If he's already on the plane back home in round 7 after getting knocked down, then it's over. So that's a very good point. Got made.
Yeah. That's why I'm the host, boys. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. I want to thank all these guys for being on. Are we going to go live right after the fight Saturday night? Anybody?
If there's people there, we'll be up watching it. So.
Well, I'm going to be illegally streaming it. So is Jeremiah. Are you paying for this, John Einreinhofer?
No,
I may be paying for this one, but I would, but I'm not. I'm actually with you guys though. I wish they didn't. I wish this was at least a Showtime fight. I don't want pay-per-view to return. I don't think it's.
Yeah, well,
this
is the thing. I'm all right with pay-per-view if you keep it at $40 or $50, and you give me fights like Canelo and Triple G. To me, a fight like this is intriguing because of all the questions you have about both fighters. But if you're going to ask me to pay $75 on a pay-per-view, it should be because they're two of the best fighters in the world, and that to me is just not the case.
And plus, or you give a good undercard, which they're not. That's what's disappointing.
Well,
they could make up for it some with a good undercard. Yeah,
I've given up on good undercards. If they went back to
good undercards.
Since the late 90s and Don King, good undercards are gone. It was the only thing Don King did for us. He gave us good undercards.
Right.
All right, guys. So you can check us out on the gruelingtruth.net Saturday night after the fight, as long as we're all still awake. And as long as you guys are still awake to listen, because I still think.
Yeah, let's hope we're not asleep during the fight.
I'm just hoping it's not like the third round. I doze off and I wake up in the 11th round, and then I gotta act like I watched the fight. But we're going to wrap the show up, guys. Make sure you check us out on thegruelingtruth.net. Make sure you go to Amazon, buy Intimate Warfare, The Tale of Gotti Ward by John Raspanti, Dennis Taylor, Ed Mulholland. Make sure you check that out. All right, guys, you can hear me and Steve Risley every day around 12 o'clock live on thegruelingtruth.net on Survive in Advance, our daily sports show. Make sure you check us out tomorrow Remember, you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. And don't forget, I almost forgot to bring this up, the Ringside Boxing Show every Sunday night with Dennis Taylor, John Raspanti. I highly recommend it. Great show every week. And you guys got Robert Garcia coming up Sunday night, right?
That is correct. Robert Garcia, ace trainer. We're going to talk a lot about Errol Spence and his fighting his brother here next year. Should be fun.
All right, so make sure you check that out too, guys. So for John Raspanti, John Einreinhofer, Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.